this one. I'm just in with you. So
Cool.
Okay, so I mean, maybe we start with the actual party. So tell me what it is and what we're doing in Singapore.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if anybody's followed what I've been doing with Asymmetric, we're not your kind of average digital assets investment firm, right? It doesn't mean that we're super special or unique like a snowflake. It just means that we tend to view the opportunity set in crypto, not so much just crypto, but Asymmetric kind of sitting at the intersection of technology, capital, and culture. And I don't think there's a lot of people that do that, which has enabled me to be early to things like Bonk as an example, or just the broader kind of forecast of things like meme coins, which is clearly, you know, associated with internet culture. The other thing though, you know, we're clearly very macro driven. We do a lot of trading. We do early stage venture stuff. So we still are absolutely an investment firm. But by being at the intersection of technology, capital, and culture gives us a really unique lens on the opportunity set that's available to us, right? So what does that mean for the event? Well, for a long time, people have always asked me about price targets, and I always tell them the exact same thing, which is that it's higher, right? Because price targets are nonsense. They're just made up, you know, by Wall Street to like sell shit to people. And give them a sense of like, oh, this is where this thing could go. It could go this high or higher from where it is now. It's like, right, so it's just higher, right? But we wanted to do an event that leaned into not just a higher price target, but like folks that are striving to do more. And is that a culturally significant thing? Is it a localized thing, right? So some examples could be somebody breaks the world record for running a marathon. They're striving for greatness in that regard. Or it could be something as small as like, you know, a teenager raises money for like their local animal shelter, right? All of those kind of encapsulate this concept because culture spans more than just crypto, clearly. And so I was chatting with a good friend of mine out of New York, and he was thinking about this hire concept, and he's like, why not work for hire with, you know, the play on words, of course. I'm like, wow, it's brilliant. And we can kind of build a little sub-brand around that, which is what we're doing in Singapore. So the concept of work for hire is, yes, it's a great party, right? Like, but it's not just a party. It's like there's meaning behind it to some extent without getting too kind of philosophical. Because yes, we're going to have fun, and we want to bring the community together. Lots of people are going to be in Singapore for Token 2049, Network Stake Breakpoint. So why not do it around that time? It makes a lot of sense. Now, the party itself is not just, hey, let's rent a club and get some DJs. Like, that's some basic mid shit. That's just not what we're gonna do, right? Sorry to anybody that's doing that, but like, I used to throw raves 20 plus years ago, right? Like I used to DJ, like we've been in the fashion industry, in the food industry, like we've been in parts of culture that I would say traditional fund managers typically don't operate in. And so the musical talent is top tier. But we're also bringing in things like the culinary arts, right, and visual arts. So our visual artists had a collection recently at Sotheby's. It's a digital art collection at Sotheby's. Our culinary arts, the guys Ghetto Gastro. This is one of the most phenomenal stories of these dudes that grew up in the Bronx, which is effectively a food desert, that have now, you know, are on par with being effectively like Michelin star chefs and creating like a whole culturally significant moment around food and their own spin on it, right? So the menu is insane. You're like, wait, you're gonna have a menu at a party? It's like, yeah, because that's part of the experience, right? So
how is that gonna work, by the way?
Yeah, good question. So
I'm curious for myself, because I'm excited for the food.
The venue is 2 floors, and on the lower floor, we've carved out room for where there's going to be the food being effectively served. But this is not like, you know, a hot dog, right? This is like, there's going to be caviar on top of this kind of stuff. But it's in a tasteful way. It's like, these guys are from the Bronx, so they bring the hood to their food a bit, right? So it's really cool. So that's how that's going to work. On the downstairs level, and we've even got a bunch of really cool, you know, it's not merchandise because we're not selling it, but we've got I think people would be surprised to see some of the stuff that we're providing just for attending the party, right? So,
wait, how do you go back to the Ghetto Gastro guys? How do you know them?
Yeah, good question. So my brother Luke, who's the producer for the event with me, he went to FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan, to learn apparel design. And so this guy, John Gray, who is the CEO of Ghetto Gastro now, went to school with Luke. He ended up not going down the route of apparel design, but we kept in touch for a long time. And when I was actually the CTO at Mother New York, which is one of the top creative agencies in the world, I reached out to John to say, hey, we're going to be we're looking to do this like cool event in Cannes for the Lions Awards, which is like a annual event for the creative industry. I want to see if Ghetto Gastro will come cater it. And so this was not his first, but one of his first kind of big international breaks, as I brought him over to South France, and he crushed it. The team the event was incredible. It was at this like mansion and overlooking the hills of South France, but also the food was it was all locally sourced. So they called it bringing South Bronx to South France. And so that's how I know John. And since then, they've just exploded. They've ended up, they do catering and events for the New York Fashion Week and the Super Bowl, and they've been on Martha Stewart's TV show, and they've got consumer packaged goods of their own food products in Target. So they just exploded because there's something really significant about the approach that they're taking to the culinary arts, making it approachable but bringing a cultural significance to it.
Yeah, that's cool. Can you talk a little bit more about the other talent that's going to be there? You were DJ, you are DJs, you're bringing in, some awesome DJs. So let us know, like, who are they?
Yeah. So the spectrum of musical talent is definitely all over the place, and that's intentional, right? Like, I think it's really kind of obvious to just say, hey, let's go book the latest like hot house DJ or whatever. But we wanted to bring like a spectrum of talent. So on the one hand, you have these two women from New York called Angel and Dren, twin sisters, killer DJs, can play a spectrum of music from house, techno, hip hop, on the piano, reggae, dub, etc., all across the board. And they're also musicians themselves, releasing their own music. They shot a video in Jamaica. I've been tracking them on Instagram because I was like, who are these women? They're blowing up, but I don't think a lot of people outside of like New York had known about them. And I was like, let's see if we can book them for the event. And they were totally on board. It's their first time to Singapore. So we're really excited about Angel and Dren. I think that it's going to open the eyes to a lot of people for the talent that they bring. Then there's a guy named Scratch Bastard. Mm-hmm. Interesting name, great guy. Like might be the nicest DJ in the industry. He's such an awesome dude. I've known him for probably 6 or 7 years now. I saw him at a party in San Francisco years ago and blew my mind. I didn't know who he was. And so he's a 3-time world champion scratch DJ. Now, he's not going to just be up there doing turntablism. He's actually probably the best party DJ I've ever witnessed. And he just got signed to Apple Music One. The guy has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. His YouTube is crazy. You can see like the technique and skill that he has is just unparalleled. And he also has an enormous record collection, right? Like I don't want to spoil it, but people should go look online. It's enormous, and he plays on records, right? So he's an actual proper vinyl DJ. So he's going to be, kind of like, call it like the headliner, if you will, the main portion of the event, just lifting the vibes. And he is an expert at reading the room and understanding like the bringing people up and down and all that. So he's going to be, I think, a critical piece to the success of the party. Then we have myself, actually, and Zano from Dino. Zano and I have been friends for a while, and he's a DJ out of Miami. He hit me up, it had been at least maybe a year ago, and he was like, Joe, we got to do a back-to-back set together. And I was like, dude, I haven't DJ'd like 6 years. And he's like, doesn't matter, man, we got to do it. And I was like, all right. So I said, look, man, that is the value add VC that I actually am. I will do anything to support my portfolio companies, including doing a back-to-back DJ set with you. So me and Xana are gonna probably play some like tech house, and techno after Scratch Bastard. And then after us, it's for the true kind of techno heads. There's an absolute legend, friend of mine out of LA, this guy named Mo, who goes by Drum Cell. He's probably the most prolific techno producer in the United States. He's toured all over the world. He plays all the huge techno clubs from Berghain to Trezor, etc. And he's got a record producing plant, like an actual plant in LA for producing vinyl, as well as he makes his own music. Just an unbelievable techno artist. And so if you look at kind of the spectrum there, it's not just like a bunch of house DJs or some hip hop DJs, it's everything in between. And so we wanted to kind of bring a spectrum of sound to elevate the experience to people so that they're not just getting the same thing throughout the entire night.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going back to Zana for a second, the guy is actually married to the game. When it comes to DJ,
yes,
he loves it.
Yeah,
we were at a company offsite, and he rented DJ equipment just to bring it in for one night, so he could sit there and play his set just for us, just for the team. It was great.
Yeah, I mean that kind of passion is infectious, and it's why I said, "Sure, man, let's go for it." Right?
Yeah. He's like a pit bull when it comes to music stuff, but he's also I don't know if it's classically trained in Kurdish music as well. He can play traditional Kurdish instruments and sing. And when he was young, he was telling me he used to do weddings and stuff, Kurdish weddings.
No way.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
You didn't? So he's actually a very talented musician, on strings and stuff like that. But anyway.
Doesn't surprise me, actually.
Yeah.
Is there anything the guy can't do?
Yeah, he's also a genius.
Yeah.
When it comes to math. But yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about some other talent that you are, friends with. Iggy.
Yeah.
She's gonna be there. She's kind of exploded on the scene in in our industry. Came out of nowhere, but it seems like she's very serious about everything that she's doing. So, can you give me some insight? Because it's you guys are friends.
Yeah.
You guys are popping up on Instagram. What are you guys doing together?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but no, I was just out of town a couple days ago. I had lunch with her, and Singapore is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I think the thing that is so cool about Iggy is if you study her story, it's unbelievable. She grew up kind of in rural Australia. Ended up working in kind of hotels, earning some money to when she turned 16 to go to the United States. Kind of told her parents she was going to go kind of visit the U.S. and she bailed. Right, she didn't come back. She's a white woman from Australia that entered the rap scene in the United States, which in and of itself is insane. And she pulled it off. She's one of the most successful artists. One of the things that I learned about her from her manager was that there's a band called the Beatles. You may have heard of them. They had the record for the most number one and number two top Billboard songs back to back 1 and 2 for 17 weeks. There's only one person that beat that record. Do you know who that is?
That's Iggy.
Iggy Azalea. And that's what's so she's super talented, but the hustle and drive and determination is unprecedented, right? If you look at the grit that this woman has, as an investor, you would be I'm backing this founder no matter what they're doing, because look at the ability that they have to pull off under, arguably the rap scene in and of itself is a non-trivial industry to go, win in, let alone set records breaking things like the Beatles, right? But she's retired from her music career, and she's very much focused on her businesses. And so she's got a number of projects that she's working on, in addition to Mother and the community with her token, etc., that I think a lot of people underestimate her. I think that when you see the vision of what she's doing with her community, as well as projects like Unreal Mobile, which is a mobile virtual network operator, Dream Vault, she recently is signed on to a huge podcast platform. There's a lot of stuff that's coming that I don't think people value or even would consider her having the ability to do it. And by the way, she manages all of her socials. There's all these people talking about oh, she's got a team, or it's guys, when I was at lunch with her, she was trolling Eric Wall live while we were sitting there. Like, I mean, it's actually her. And so this is, again, it's like, I think people tend to look at celebrities entering like the Web3 space with some healthy skepticism, but she's the opposite of that, in my opinion. And so we'll be on stage together at Open 2049. I don't want to spoil anything, but I highly recommend watching the live stream. And then, yeah, she's also she'll be at our party, and then the next night she has her event, which is, I don't want to give the spoiler either, but you should also expect a live stream, as well as just her vision for how crazy this party is going to be. I mean, she's giving away a Lamborghini, right? And I won't say why she's doing that. I'll leave that up to her. But the kind of pop cultural experience that she's bringing into Web3, particularly in the Solana ecosystem, is just unparalleled at this point. And I don't think that that's going to slow down, given the vision that she has, especially as she's retired from her music career and moving more into being like a proper businesswoman, as well as entrepreneur, as well as still a cultural icon.
She's kind of pushing. I was telling my friend about it. I'm like, it almost seems like she's pushing in the Ryan Reynolds direction. You have your fingers in a few different businesses, and you're like kind of taking over and using your celebrity to, move those businesses. I mean, Ryan Reynolds did it brilliantly.
Yeah, I mean,
Mint Mobile and whatnot. So is she kind of following that playbook?
Yeah, I mean, but also kind of charting her own course, right? So like Ryan Reynolds, with what he did with his MVNO, very successful. I think he had a tequila brand as well, or still does, or gin or something like that. Yeah, gin, yeah.
Which was important.
Yeah, there you go. So like, hats off to Ryan Reynolds, right? Like, he's using his celebrity beyond just being a great actor. But also Rihanna did, her cosmetics line and made her a fortune. And I don't know if she's officially retired from music, but she doesn't do a lot of music anymore, at least not that I'm aware of. And so I think if you look at, what Ryan has been able to do and Rihanna's being able to do, Iggy is borrowing from those playbooks, but still, charting her own path. And I think when people start to see some of the other things that she's bringing to market, the projects that she's involved in, it'll be super clear, right? I think furthermore, the things that Ryan and say Rihanna haven't done or didn't do is embrace like the Web3 community. And Iggy is clearly all in on that. And she has a fervent fan base in her Telegram chat for Mother, but also how she's incorporating Mother into so many things. So for example, the fastest growing music festival in the United States called Breakaway, you can pay with Mother token and get 20% off tickets and VIP and all that kind of stuff, right? There's no other token associated with that.
Is she performing there?
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure she's very busy. I won't speak for her. Okay. I'll leave it to her manager, but I'm pretty sure she's not performing there. But the point is that she's bringing, I think, because she has such a huge celebrity kind of persona and profile, she's obviously leveraging that in a positive way, but also she's doing it with this community that she's building around Mother. And I think that that's what's unique about, say, if you look at other celebrities that are just like, oh, do a tequila brand or, a cosmetics line or whatever. She's actually doing it, I think, in the right way of bridging that technological bound between technology and culture, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we work so well together is because at Asymmetric, we're at the intersection of, technology, capital, and culture. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, Iggy's view as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, maybe off camera. I don't remember, but you keep mentioning culture. What makes Solana culture different from other cultures?
Oh, man, it's so good. Look, I'll preface this with my last company that I ran, NodeSource, the Node.js company, open source software company, before crypto is what it is today. This is like 10, 11 years ago. I wanted so desperately for there to be a sense of, coolness or brand beyond just a bunch of nerds writing code. And I failed at that with Node.js. I tried and I was like, this is just, I can't do it. It's not ready yet, or it wasn't like the right combination of things. And if you look at most kind of open source or technological communities, they're usually started by engineers, which historically, I don't want to generalize, but historically are not the most kind of culturally relevant people, typically, right? And you can kind of see that in other communities, whether it's Bitcoin, it's Ethereum, and this is not picking on them, it's just that like you have these gigabrain engineers that are focused on writing code and building, you know, groundbreaking technologies. They're typically not DJs like Xano, right? Like typically, right? What I noticed about Solana when I got into it early, many years ago, I guess in 2019 and 2020 specifically, I was looking at it going like, these guys are kind of approaching blockchain, not so much from just the engineering side. I mean, the engineering tech is incredible, as we all know. The first principles approach of parallelization, cheap transaction fees, etc., was kind of a 180 from basically any other chain at that point, right? But they were also embracing culture to the extent that they wanted to have content creators and the folks from YouTube and, you know, musicians, and they were sponsoring Lollapalooza and these types of things that an open source project, from my perspective, had never really done. Or if they did it very poorly. And so Solana has done, I think, an amazing job of attaching itself to pop culture in an authentic way, right? Because you could do it in like a cheesy way, which is just like the let's rent a club and like get some DJs, right? Like you can do that, or you can do it in an authentic way. And I think that Tole and Raj and the broader Solana Labs team, as well as like the folks that have spun out of Solana Labs and even the foundation, you can see that they have a pulse on culture, like our buddy Bartosz, who runs Cube, right? This is a insanely technological, technology-driven exchange that's using like groundbreaking MPC infrastructure for making sure that you don't have to trust a centralized exchange, right? And then you look at their brand, it's so fucking cool, right? And like they're like, come win a event with Travis Scott and these types of things. Like, you don't see that with Coinbase. You don't see that with Bybit, or, you know, I'm not picking on these guys. I'm just saying it's just not what they do. And so Bartosz used to work at Solana, right? And so I think that there was maybe this kind of almost like it's like bees to honey or whatever the phrase is, right? Like there was this flocking of people that wanted to be in crypto, Web3, and blockchain, but brought their own kind of cultural identities to it, which enhanced Solana. And you're seeing that play out today. I mean, whether it's, you know, things like Drip House, they're doing really, really cool things with content creators, or it's things like Cube. You don't really get to see this very often in a broader open source community. And I've been doing open source for 15, 16 years, and Solana is the first and currently only community that I've seen that's actually been able to associate itself with culture in an authentic and meaningful way.
Yeah, 100%. Zano kind of touched on this the last time I talked to him. But yeah, it is interesting that Solana seems to be being built from the ground up, not the top down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty cool thing when you have people. I mean, yes, like you said, it's like bees to honey, where it attracts a certain type of person. But then I think culture has to be organic. Mm-hmm. And you know, you can kind of like set that spark from the top, like Raj Toy could set that spark, but then for it to be authentic, it has to be like from the ground up, right?
Correct. Like one of the first times I was hanging out with Iggy, she was just telling me like, of course Solana. It's like, duh, it's fast, it's cheap, and it's like, why would you use something else? I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can you say that like to everybody, please? Because it has been very obvious to folks that have been in the community for a long time. But this is actually, you know, part and parcel to my theory of when culture officially adopts a new technology, it's kind of a wrap at that point. And it doesn't mean that there isn't room for other chains or ecosystems. But what it does mean is it's a winner takes most environment. And if you actually have, applications that normies want to use, retail wants to use, consumers want to use, pop culture is embracing with, like, that's probably going to win. And that's kind of what we're seeing play out right now with Solana.
That's right. It's funny, this conversation has come up so many times. Like, talk with Moonwalk Fitness and Bonk the other day about just like consumer apps and what needs to be built. So for me, like, I was just thinking about it and I was like, what apps do I use daily? One would be, Strava, basically, for like fitness apps. That's something that I would use daily. What do you think needs to be built? And this is kind of a side note, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts. What do you think needs to be built on Solana Like, what kind of consumer app do you think is important to bring more people in? Is it music? Is it art? Is it fitness? What is it?
It's a really good question, because I think the answer is nobody actually knows. And the reason I say that is, if you look at, say, AI, artificial intelligence, there's like 60 years of research, 65, 70 years of research that has been conducted around artificial intelligence before they had a breakout app. And what was that app? ChatGPT, right? Were people saying 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, hey, what's the app or the thing that you currently use that should just be using AI? No, it had to be a net new innovation, right? The key is ChatGPT's interface is basically like a conversation, right? It's super simple from like a first principles perspective. You're having a conversation, but the underlying technology finally evolved to the extent that it was this breakout success, right? I think that there's clearly room for folks to bring Web 2 based applications to Web 3. I think a lot of folks will try to shoehorn stuff in and it won't work. But I do think there's an opportunity for a net new form of innovation that could end up happening at the consumer level, because the underlying tech, once again, is firmed up. And clearly, we think that Solana is going to be that underlying core technology. And I actually would argue that the types of applications that will likely break out are going to be things that don't promote the fact that there's blockchain, right? It needs to be something like the magic of technology is when it disappears. Okay. And so when an application is ultimately built, in theory, on top of Solana, people aren't even going to really know. And so it's hard to look at, whether it's video games, it's action sports, it's fashion and apparel, it's the film industry, the music industry, the food industry. How does that all of a sudden get like Web 3'd? I don't know. That's like not like you don't want to like have a technology solution and find a problem, right? There's going to be something that will likely happen, whether it's maybe it has to do with finance, which is what a surprise, right? With things like crypto and blockchain. But it could be something else where, people have figured out the underlying tech well enough where they're like, hey, I have this idea for an app that can utilize this. And that could be the consumer breakout app. It's not a great answer because I'm searching for this myself, but I try to look at other patterns that have existed. And if you look at the ChatGPT example, no one was saying I need a conversation with an artificial intelligence bot, right? And then that was the hit. And so I think that you may end up with something like that in crypto as well, or particularly on Solana. But I'm about 99% convinced it will be on a mobile device.